Welcome.
Shalom.
Shalom. Okay, let's get started.
Okay, we were hoping that we would like to, or that people wanted to see a bit of a short review tonight to start out with, just to refresh our minds where we're at, what we saw last week. It was the Hebrew evening, and we were learning about when the evening is and the description of Erev. What is Erev? Anybody that was around last weekend?
It's the mixing of the dark and the light together, the dusk just before the sun goes below the horizon.
Right.
Score! Gold star for everyone. I'd like to start out the review this is the lexicon by John Parkhurst. It was written in 1762. It does not use the Masoretic vowel points, which is very, very interesting and a topic all of its own. Can I have someone read this?
I'd be happy to read it.
Okay.
Okay, let me get the people minimized. That's kind of in my way there. Okay. Hebrew English Lexicon, 1762, John Parkhurst. Evening, to mix, mingle, be mingled, a mixture, mixed multitude, rabble of flies or insects. Parentheses, J. Parkhurst then gives text where flies apply. The mixers, mixed ones, light and spirit mixed together. The heavens or celestial fluid consists of this mixture. To be darkened, duskily obscured. Beha Arbayim, which means between the evenings, or more literally, between the mixtures. At sunset, when the cool dark air mixes or night air mixes with it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I want you to notice that that last definition in red, literally between the mixtures. And that is going to be the full topic of what we're going to be studying tonight. Go ahead, Donna. You want to finish that, please?
Oh, sure. The evening air from the western or darkened part of the heavens begins to mix with the day, which mixture continues till night. When the day is overpowered, the darkness prevails, and the mixture of daylight ceases.
Yeah. Okay, this is the Gesenius lexicon. According to the opinion of the Karaites and Samaritans, which is favored by the words Deuteronomy 16:6, the time between sunset and deep twilight. Now, this is the important part. For the Pharisees, however, and the Rabbinists consider the time when the sun began to descend to be called the first evening, Arab, little evening, when it begins to draw toward evening, and the second evening to be the real sunset. I'll go to the next one. The Pharisees and the Rabbinists, the Talmud, do not consider the original Hebrew definitions of the word Erev. Instead, they declare or manipulate that Erev has the meaning of when the sun starts to lower itself in the sky. Now, I've been through many, many lexicons, and I have never seen that definition given for the word Erev. Where they get that, where they take it from, how they formed it, I do not know. But that is the indication that they want us to understand. Thus, they declare that the start of the first evening is at the point of noon when the sun appears to descend in the sky. On days 1 to 6, we see that Yahuwah is busy during the light season with the events of creation. And you'll see that half circle down there, that's representing the light season on the days of creation. Then we read that the evening, Erev, came to be. And you'll find that in the Hallelujah scriptures. To fulfill the mixing definition and description of Erev, evening, the light must be present first to provide a base for the ensuing darkness mixing action with the light. Okay, on the right, you'll see where that little hey, I can get my my cursor to light up here. There we go. Can everybody see that? Cool.
Yes.
Okay, so this is the Areb evening that came in here. It's I show it as a little tiny slice because that's virtually what it is. It's one portion of the light season. And the scriptures say, and there came to be evening. That was after the day of creating. And the next slide is Mario. There's this black screen with all kinds of little things in it that's in my way here. What can I do with that? Oh, I got it. Good enough. And the Erev evening darkness occurred. The night season darkness, Leil, passed by unannounced. And it's not working. There it is. That's your night season. Nothing happened there, so it's unannounced. Then the Boker, dawn, morning, light triggers the termination of the previous 24-hour period. There's your Boker slice. This is the rotation. And it comes back, and that's day one. And that's the same through all 6 days. And day 7, there was no work done. That's the only difference between the days. Yahuwah's days of creation were dawn to dawn. There's your Boker, starting at dawn. There's your rotation. There's your evening. There's your night. Dawn to dawn. Does everybody understand that? Can you see that from scriptures?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. Do you have any comments, Charlene?
If there's anybody that has any questions about this study, we should hear them right now. Is everybody clear that the day begins with light and then the evening comes as the second component? Are we all on the same page? Okay.
Very clear.
So if any, okay. So I want to hear from the people that say, no, I don't get it. Oh, okay. So if we're all on the same page, then Tim and I want you to know that this is the foundational cornerstone of the whole calendar study right here, that the day begins with light. Evening is the second component. You cannot have an evening unless there's light first. It's impossible. So when we've been taught, a lot of us were taught that the day starts at evening. But the thing is, you can't have an evening unless you have light first. And you never have evening follow night. So the day has to start with light. So if you understand that, then you're well on your way for the calendar study.
And there is one thing I'd like to mention. I'm going to put in a plug for one of my most passionate PowerPoints. And that is the unleavened bread consumption schedule. I have found when I plug in the sunset system of worship, I have found in the scriptures that it breaks the statutes of Yahuwah for Passover and unleavened bread. It makes it absolutely impossible to keep the commands that Yahuwah said. And so I'm not sure when that PowerPoint is going to come out, but it's very, very important because Passover and unleavened bread are coming up. And for those people that don't understand how the sunset breaks the statutes or causes the statutes to be broken, if those people are interested in the PowerPoint, please contact me and I'll send it forward to you because this is vital. It's very, very important.
Okay, and Tim, when you're talking about the statutes being broken, you're referring to the dawn to dawn. This covenant of the day.
Yeah, well, no, I'm the commands on how to observe Passover. The very, very ultra specific commands
From evening to
on how to observe Passover, as in timing. Okay? They're very, very specific, and only by observing dawn to dawn can each and every statute and command be observed perfectly. But if by observing on sunset to sunset, I have found that these commands and the statutes just can't be fulfilled. They just can't. And this is very, very important, especially with Passover coming up upon us. Okay, is anybody ready? Shall we go to Between the Evenings? Okay.
Sounds like everybody got an A+ on that one.
Okay, where are we here?
So Tim and I are going to team teach this PowerPoint, and then there'll be some of you that are volunteering, and I have a few more that I'm going to volunteer as well. And if you're not comfortable when I volunteer you, just let us know and we'll get somebody else. So we should probably start with a word of prayer.
Is there anybody that would like to volunteer for prayer?
I will do it. Father in heaven, we are so blessed to be able to have this time to come together with friends from around the world to look at your wonderful calendar studies. And I just pray tonight that you would be with each and every individual here, that you would open our eyes and open our ears to understand what we are going to be learning tonight. And Father, if there are questions, that we would be able to give a ready word of answer from your scriptures, and that we would be able to take these baby steps in learning calendar just one at a time and become more familiar with how your word works. We thank you for your presence here with us tonight, and we invite your holy angels to be around us as we continue on with our about 50 slides. And we just praise you, Yahuwah, for everything that you have taught us and for showing us how we can come into a closer relationship with you on your special times. We just ask for your presence now in Yahushua's name. Amen.
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 Okay.
If there's anybody that would like us to stop and back up a slide or go over a slide again, please feel free to let us know. Okay, don't be shy, because if we move on without you understanding the slides, it's no good. So please let us know. That's our request. Okay. Ben ha-Arbayim, between the Ereb mixtures or evenings. And the reason I have evenings in a question mark is because that is what we're going to be looking at today. And I wish I could get these. Oh, hang on. I'm trying to get these pictures off the screen, Mario. How do I do that?
I'm seeing slide 1. I'm not seeing any pictures, so.
Yeah, but see that the pictures are stopping me from reading.
The picture. Let me see.
Okay, hang on. Okay, I just removed them completely. Good enough. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, Ben ha-Arbayim. These are the words that we're going to find in the scriptures. If we go to the right, you'll see there's the Beit Yod Nun, and this represents the word Beyn. That's our English translation of it, the phonics, and that means between. The letter He is translated as Ha, and we get the word the out of that. Then there's Ayin, Resh, Beit, Yod, Mem. That's Arbayim, mixtures. And again, I have evenings in question mark. Why do I have it in question mark? Because from the Hebrew definitions, the word Arbayim and Ereb indicates it's a mixture. It does not declare evening. It's mixture. It is what happens in the evenings is why we call it, or is why the word is directed to evenings as Erev, the mixture. I think I messed that up. But it's not, Arbayim does not mean evenings. And I want to get that clear to everyone because that's going to become out much clearer through the PowerPoint. If you look in the Hebrew letters, you'll see that the exact same root word is here. Ayin, Resh, Bet, that's in Arbayim. Ayin, Resh, Bet, that's in Rev. It's the exact same word. It is the Masoretic vowels that changed this to Arbayim. And this is the Hebrew word for mixture. And our English translation is evening. And notice the question mark on that. Ben ha-Arbayim, between the evenings. We're going to be looking at Exodus 12:6. The phrase Ben ha-Arbayim is found 10 times in the scriptures. These verses are Exodus 12:6, 16:12, 29:39, and 41, chapter 30, verse 8, Leviticus 23:5, Numbers 9:3, 5, and 11, verses I should say, and chapter 28, verse 4. This phrase is mistakenly considered controversial and needs attention so it can be understood according to the Hebrew language definitions. In the PowerPoint study, The Hebrew Evening, we have seen the definitions that profoundly expose the meaning of mixture, which applies directly to the word erev, or evening, so we're told. This same exact word, erev, provides the base word for the plural, arbayim, mixtures, evening and morning. Darlene, you want to go?
Mm-hmm. The Beyn provides the meaning of in between, betwixt, asunder, within, out of, and from. And John Parkhurst tells us that it gives a subtle credence to the Jewish concept of the evening starting at noon, but then it adds this interesting comment. So remember, we've been looking at the Jews are saying that the evening starts at noon. But Parkhurst goes on to say, or more literally, between the mixtures. This is a little bit of a tricky phrase, so we need to go through it slowly.
Yeah.
Quite interestingly, Parkhurst is directly indicating the authentic Hebrew meaning to be taken from the actual verb event, and the verb is mixing, and he applies it to time. There are 2 times in the 24-hour cycle when this mixing of light and darkness, as it would be applied to time, that you will find this. The light and darkness mixtures are found early in the morning, that's your boker, that's before sunrise, and then after the sun has set, and you have that indirect light from the sun that's allowed to mix and mingle with the night. That is called a reb. So those are your 2 times that you'll find these mixtures. They're called twilights. So according to Parkhurst, if we take the very literal meaning of this mixing action, the real meaning of the Hebrew words will then be between the light mixtures. So that means pre-sunrise boker and post-sunset arev. We're going to be seeing some tables about this. So, to see if this concept is welcomed by scriptural alignment, we need to look really closely at some verses. And we'll look at our first illustration to make sure we're on the same page.
This is the location of the Areb. And I got the plural S on it there, just so we know that there's 2 of them. On the left-hand side here, one single Areb, light and darkness mixture, that's pre-sunrise. You'll notice that's between the dawn and between the sunrise. That's your twilight mixture. This is the time when Lot and his daughters were escaping to Zoar. It's in this time frame right here. And it says, and the sun rose when they entered in Zoar. And on the right, is another twilight, post-sunset. The twilight darkness can only occur when the sun has set and there's no direct sunlight in the sky. Is there anybody that would like to go over that for me?
I'm going to choose Mario to explain this slide the way he understands it. Okay, Mario?
He's not there.
Yeah, Mario, get your mic open so we can hear you.
Mario, we can't hear you.
Flashcards.
Mario's not paying attention.
Turn your mic off, Mario.
Find that right button, Mario.
There we go. I couldn't get to the button at all. It was blocked by my taskbar at the bottom.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so
Okay, Mario.
now I can see Tim's picture pretty okay and not the slide. So I'm working on my end over here. Don't know what's going on.
Is there somebody else that would like to
There we go.
explain?
There we go. Okay, now it's working. Okay.
Okay.
What you were asking was for me to describe what I see here?
Yes.
Yeah, what did you learn from this slide?
Well, that between the evenings or between the mixtures shows me all day.
Yeah? Yeah, it does.
Which kind of frees up a whole lot of stuff. I mean, you know, it's pretty hard to get something done between 2 and 3, 3 stars, as opposed to having all day to get it done.
Yeah. It makes a big difference, doesn't it?
Yeah. Between the mixtures.
Okay. Here we are. On the left, again, is the pre-sunrise Erev. On the right is the post-sunset Erev, or mixtures. And that is 2 Arbayim. That is the plural of Erev. So there's two Erev and 1 Arbayim.
So
Here, go ahead, Mary.
I was going to say, I did think it just makes it simpler because we've investigated the Hebrew as opposed to evening. Because if it was written between the 2 mixtures, it would be so much more enlightening than the phrasing between evenings.
Yeah, the Hebrew definitions makes things so much clearer, a lot clearer.
Okay, Tim, I would like to ask you to go back to slide 10 first.
Tim?
Yeah, just go back one.
Okay.
And Donna West, is Donna there? Donna, can you tell us what you understand on this slide?
I'm looking at the same slide that Mario just described. Is that the one you want?
But I want to hear how you understand it.
Okay. In my mind, what I am hearing is that in order to have light, you must have light mixing with dark. So that would be an Erev. That would be the light and darkness mixture, or the post-sunset. And again, in the morning, you have the sunlight is mixing with the end of the evening, or the end of the dark period, the end of the night. So you would have your pre-sunrise Erev, and it's called in Hebrew Arbayim, which means between the mixtures.
Yeah.
Okay, but on the slide before, Tim had Erev singular. This is Arbayim plural. Do you
Right.
see a difference? Okay, so when the word Arbayim is used, is talking about both of the mixtures. When Erev is used, it's only talking about one mixture, either the Boker or the Erev in the evening. Did everybody catch that?
Yeah, you're saying
This is
S makes a big difference? You're saying S makes a big difference, huh?
Yeah. Some people have asked us, and other people have commented that the day starts at sunrise, and we hear people that are keeping this system, but they're going saying, "Oh yeah, we keep sunrise to sunrise." Well, according to the scriptural definitions and examples, that's not quite accurate, because when the angel come to get Lot, it said, and morning had already began. So this would be the morning right here. This is the beginning of your full spectrum of the light season, because he escaped and he went into Sor, and it says, and the sun arose on him as he entered the city, or the small city. So actually, it's dawn. By biblical example, it's dawn that starts the full spectrum of the light season.
So dawn is that period where we can see light, but the sun hasn't actually broken the horizon.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. I wish I should have been prepared with that verse. There's a verse in, I think maybe it's Jeremiah, that says, when the eyelashes of dawn, and that is when the very first little streaks of light that poke up above the dark horizon, that's the eyelashes of dawn. That's when the day begins, according to scripture.
I might make a comment here. A friend of ours was, for a while, has been talking about between the evenings being between sunset and dusk. And what I've learned from this little thing you've done is that for that to be so, it would have to say something like Beyn ha-Erev, in other words, between the Erev, but it doesn't. It says Beyn ha-Arbayim. There's that plural coming in, so therefore it needs to bring in both dawn, both twilights, dawn and dusk, to be part of this equation.
Yes.
Yes.
Very excellent. Yeah. And we're going to be going more through that later on. You'll see more of that coming up.
Did you want to say something, Linda?
Yeah, you said something last time about Yahweh doing this because he didn't want us worshiping the sun, so he gave us these Arabs. Is that correct?
I say that that's his built-in mechanism to prevent us from worshiping the sun, because he points us to look to the light. We're not to be looking to the orb of the sun. Like there's strong verses in the scripture that tell us, do not worship any of the creation or in the sky or anything. So if we pay attention to what he says, he has a built-in mechanism to protect us from that if we pay attention.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah.
It looked like Gary was going to say something too. He turned his mic off for a second. Did you want to share something, Gary?
No, I totally lost connection and reconnected, so I missed about 5 minutes. But I think I'm caught up though.
Okay, great.
Good.
Okay, Gary, just stand by, because after Tim teaches the next slide, I want to hear some feedback from you on slide 11. Okay?
All right.
All right.
Okay, so I go to the next slide.
Yes, we've got 50 slides. We better get going.
Yeah. Here are some more observations. Between the light and darkness mixtures cannot mean after sunset. Between is this arrow right here. After sunrise, up onto sunset, but not afterwards. Between means literally in between, in the middle of. It does not include the mixtures. Out of the 10 verses in the scriptures cited earlier, it should be possible to apply this statement without any conflict from the word.
Okay, so Gary, it's your turn now to explain that slide to everybody else.
The simplicity of it is that it cannot be prior to sunrise, prior to sunrise or after sunset.
Okay,
Perfect.
so the mixtures are at the dawn twilight and the dusk twilight, and between the evenings is between those mixtures. So that's a whole lot of time. That's the whole light season where the sun is in the sky, right?
Yes, and that makes wonderful sense.
Okay.
I like how you
Alright.
said wonderful sense. That is wonderful, isn't it?
And
Okay, great.
it's going to make a whole lot more sense in a little while, too. Next slide. Or is there more
Yes,
comments?
we're ready.
Okay. Context, evening. The only time a light and darkness mixture happens is after, oh, your picture's in the way here, Charlene. I can't read what I have there.
After the sunset.
After the sunset. Or conversely, prior to sunrise. And again, this is just repetition. You know, if you'd missed it out on the first slide, you'll catch it on this one. Hopefully we can get everybody on the same page here. Any more comments?
No, excellent job.
I had,
Go ahead.
something that comes to mind for me, I'm thinking about Passover. There's all these Israelites, Hebrews, that need to slaughter a lamb and cook it. Now, if they were to, Yahweh always, during creation, he worked during the light. I heard this said in last week's. He worked during the light. He would therefore want us to work during the light. So this, the thing of oh gosh, we're going to start at sunset, we're going to slaughter a lamb and then we're going to cook it and it's going to be ready to eat before 1 o'clock in the morning. I don't think so. So to me, there's so many reasons that this, the Passover, slaughtering the lamb and preparation and so forth, would have to happen during the full light of, all the amount of time, the full light of day.
We can, if you read Exodus 12:6, I think it's verse 6, it becomes so clear. Verse 6. And you shall keep it, well, go ahead.
We're coming up to that in 2 slides, Tim, so why don't we just wait and read it? And I think Linda's going to be reading it for us.
Okay, then I'll continue on with this chart.
I wanted to make a comment about something that he said, though, that was, we used to bring a lamb home on the 10th of what we thought was the first month every year. And we went through that whole ordeal, literally, physically. And it was an extreme challenge, especially when if you did it on the 14th, now you're on the 15th now. So now you're doing it on the wrong day. And then if you did it on the 13th and you couldn't keep it till overnight, now the 14th is still the 14th day the next day. So we were like jacked up every single year, like for 10 years. And it was a real challenge. And it took a handful of us to get that lamb ready for the spit and have our barbecue memorial every year. So this, if I was still doing that, this would even be so refreshing to me if I was still doing that. At least I'd know I had the whole day.
What about those people that get together and have a great big barbecue all day long? You know, like how great would that be?
Yeah, right.
This is just another chart. I want to make sure that everybody knows the word between. Not after, not before, but between. And you can see that with the bright blue bracket with the yellow inside of it. Between
I do have
sunrise and prior to the sunset. Go ahead.
one question. This word between, that's not the plural, is it, or is it?
It's between the mixtures.
Yeah.
So the between is the action. It's not a plural or a singular. It's an action.
The Arbayim is the plural.
Yes.
Of mixtures,
And yes.
right?
I was going to ask Sylvia to give us her comments on this slide. Sylvia, Rudy?
Okay, so then the Arbayim, the between, it's, well, kind of self-explanatory. It's after the sunrise and before the sun sets, because the only two mixtures are between dawn and sunrise and sunset and night. So it has to take place. So with the example of the lamb, you could start, if you're preparing this lamb between the evenings, you could start right after sunrise getting that lamb slaughtered and prepped and ready and get it on to be cooking so that you will be ready to eat it when that evening comes. And you're still in the same day since the day begins.
It looks like Dana, you have your hand up too?
No, I was just agreeing.
You were just agreeing, okay.
Okay, for slide 14, Linda West is going to read slide 14 for us. Linda West, did she leave?
You mean Donna West?
You mean me? Or the
No,
other
I've
one?
got, I mean Linda.
Oh, okay. Exodus 12:3, speak to all the congregation of Israel, saying, on the 10th day of this month, each one of them is to take for himself a lamb, according to the house of his father, a lamb for a household. Exodus 12:4, and if the household is too small for the lamb, let him and his neighbor next to his house take it according to the number of the beings. According to each man's need, you make your count for the lamb. Exodus 12:5, let the lamb be a perfect one, a year-old male. Take it from the sheep or from the goats. Exodus 12:6, and you shall keep it until the 14th day of the same month. Then all the assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it between the evenings. Judging by what we have been studying, the precious animal's life must have been taken sometime after the sunrise and before the sunset. There is no problem here. The scriptural and historical records show full compliance with this concept.
Okay, sounds good. I'll do the next one. This very special lamb for the Passover of Exodus 12, there were some conditions. It had to be slain on Abib 14. It had to be slain ben ha-Arbayim, that is between the twilight mixtures. It had to be roasted in a fire, and it had to be eaten precisely on that Abib 14 night. It was that night.
Did you hear that,
Number
Mario?
5.
Mario, did you hear that? Abib 14 night.
Mario's missing.
Okay.
The lamb had to be eaten with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. And the remains of the lamb, if they were not eaten, were to be burned with fire before the light of the next day, before dawn. They had to have their loins girded in Exodus 12, their sandals on, and their staff in their hand, ready to go. This was the Pesach, the Passover of Yahuwah, all on Abib 14. And what does Yahuwah then declare? He says, and I shall pass through the land of Mitzrayim on that night. That was Passover night on Abib 14. And that happened at midnight. So the death angel did not pass over on the Sabbath of unleavened bread that some say started at sunset. The Passover angel passed over at midnight. I think we all know that. So contrary to what many of us have been taught since childhood, Passover is never to be observed on the Abib 15 unleavened bread night season. You will find nowhere in the scriptures that there is ever a claim to be found declaring Passover to start on Abib 15, day or night of unleavened bread. It's nowhere. And you know what? When we kept our very first Passover, it was in 2006. And we went 2 hours west to Bella Coola to celebrate Passover with about 8 people down there. And we were celebrating it right at sundown. And one of the gentlemen in the group, who I respected highly for his good Bible study habits, he said, I hope that you all know that this is now the Sabbath of the unleavened bread feast. That's where we've entered in at sundown. And you know what? We had just learned about the feasts like 6 or 8 weeks before. And I just went, something's wrong. We're doing Passover. How did we get to unleavened bread? But that's what we were taught, that at sunset it's unleavened bread. So we were keeping our little Passover Seder on what was declared as unleavened bread Sabbath according to sunset. And that was a red flag to me that night that something was wrong. I finally figured it out about 5 years later, 6 years later is when we were doing these studies. So let's just keep going because we have a few more slides to get. We're going to move on to the next scripture selection with Beyn Arbayim in Exodus 16. This is the chapter that talks about the quail and the manna. And I'm asking Randy to read this slide. Randy, are you ready for slide 18? If he's still with us. Yeah, there he is.
And Yahweh spoke to Moshe and saying, I've heard the grumblings of my children of Israel. Speak to them, saying, between the evenings you are to eat meat, and in the morning you are to be satisfied with bread, and to know that I am Yahweh, your Elohim. Yahweh is promising the Hebrew nation that they will be eating meat before the light and darkness mixture of the evening. We read this very next text, Exodus 16:3, and it came to be that the quails came up at evening and covered the camp.
If we look at that word yehi, that describes a transitional period. This is going to become important. What gives? I thought in verse 12, Yahuwah had promised the quail before the evening mixture. Charlene?
Maybe we need to look a little more closely to the actual Hebrew text. So there you have the complete text of Exodus 13 in Hebrew. And the first word on the right is highlighted in green. And this word is to be written as Vav Yod He Yod. And it is pronounced, however Tim said it.
Yehi?
Yeah. Okay. And this word is used in Genesis 1:2, where it is translated as is becoming. Do you remember in Genesis 1:2, well, first of all, verse 1 says, in the beginning, Yahweh created the heaven and the earth. And then what does it say? And the earth was void, without form, and darkness covered the abyss there. This transitional period of it came to be is a state of being, and it's used 709 times in the scriptures, so it's there a lot.
Now, if we read that same verse from the Hallelujah scriptures, it translates this word a little more accurately, and I'm going to read it. And the earth came to be formless and empty. So it shows that transitional state of being from one state to another. Charlene?
So
Yes.
that confirming that Genesis 1:1 was a complete statement.
Yes, excellent
Yes.
point, Mario. Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay. Yehi, from one state of being, transforming into another state of being over a period of time. The Etymological Dictionary of the Hebrew Language by Ernest Klein assigns the meaning of "and let him be" to this word Yehi. And Sylvia, if you think I'm pronouncing this wrong, you can go right ahead and let me know, okay?
Vayahi.
It's what?
It's Vayahi, not Yehi.
It's the vav though is the word and.
Yes.
Yeah, so the vav is kind of that prefix. It's the and. So he's got the word right. It's the vav just means the and before it.
No, if you're going to leave off the Vav, then it's Yehi, not
Yehi.
Yehi.
Yehi. Okay. Good. Thank you. This allows for a future event to unfold. That future event in this instance and text of the study has been named as a Rev. A Hebrew English lexicon of the Old Testament by Gesenius has some very interesting comments on the Vav letter used in the Yehi word. 1a. The Vav, demonstrative adverb and conjunction. The use in Hebrew shows that originally Vav was not merely a copulative conjunction, but that it possessed a demonstrative force, or demonstrative force. I'm not sure how to say that. There's going to be some definitions here, and they might be a little difficult to get through, but it's going to show the idea of how this word allows for time to elapse. You want to go there, Charlene?
Yes, and there's the whole slide of definitions, so just hang in there. The Vav introduces an idea that so exceeds or adds to what has preceded that it is nearly equivalent to the word also. It also connects alternative cases, so it's equivalent to the word or. The Vav also connects contrasted ideas, like explicitly expressed by the word but. And these, you know, this is the theory. This is not the clinical. This is the dry part, right? Another definition of the Vav attaches a fresh subject or object to a clause already grammatically complete. When the idea is thus attached, is subordinate or not logically embraced in the predominant. And don't ask me to explain that. These are just some definitions. In circumstantial clauses, the Vav introduces a statement of the concomitant conditions under which the action denoted by the principal verb takes place. So those are the definitions that come from this dictionary. This information quite easily provides allowance for the becoming action of Vav Yod He Yod to understand that the evening period close to when the quail arrived was fast approaching and even close. The transition period changing from afternoon to the evening mixture of light and darkness was being achieved as the quail arrived. We have not been given a definite time of arrival. We are, however, given enough information to understand that the quail arrived very close to the evening mixture of light and darkness. Now, that should make sense because quail don't start to bed down until it begins to get towards the dusky time of the day. Otherwise, they're up in the sky flying around or eating or whatever.
Yeah.
One more definition here from Barker. The vav is a paragogic where it connects the sense with something preceding and added first to a verb. And I'm not an English student, I can't explain it, but we'll see it explained in the scriptures. Once again, we see the ability to connect two different thoughts into one concept.
The word paragogic means pertains to or contains substance within it. That's basically what paragogic means. Or contains relative substance is what I should say.
Okay, we all understand that, right? Through Hebrew language indications, the arrival of the quail was timed just before the sunset. Of course, that would be the time when the quail would be flying low and looking for a place to settle for the night season because they go to roost. Well, the Israelites had time to eat the quail in between the mixtures of light and darkness as the quail continued to arrive while the sun set and the Arab evening mixture of the light and darkness begins to be replaced by the direct sunlight.
Looking to the next selection in the scriptures with Ben ha-Arbayim, between the evenings of Exodus 29.
And Rebecca, you're going to read slide 25. Rebecca, there she is. But we need your mic on, Rebecca.
Okay. Exodus 29:39. Prepare the one lamb in the morning and the other lamb you prepare between the evenings, literally between the light and the darkness mixtures. Exodus 29:40. And 1/10 of an ephah of flour mixed with 1/4 of a hin of pressed oil and 1/4 of a hin of wine as a drink offering with the one lamb. 29:41. And prepare the other lamb between the evenings, literal between the light and darkness mixtures, and with it prepare the grain offering and the drink offering as in the morning for a sweet fragrance, an offering made by fire to Yahuwah. The first lamb was to be prepared early morning, boker. What about the second lamb? And prepare the other. Am I still on the same slide?
Sure, go ahead.
And
Keep going.
prepare the other lamb between the evenings, literal, between the light and darkness mixtures. And with it prepare the grain offering. I can't see that word, it's underneath it. And the drink offering in the morning for a sweet fragrance, an offering made by fire to Yahuwah.
Okay, that second lamb could be prepared between the evenings. There is your between the evening times, and it's after sunrise and before sunset. So Mario's out there and he's having just a blast barbecuing all day long. Yahuwah gave the Hebrew nation a full light season for preparation of the second lamb. This was for the inauguration of the Aharonic priesthood.
Okay, Renee, can you stay on that slide 26, Tim?
I can.
Renee Tunsky, do you have any comments? Yes, that's you. Do you have any comment for this slide? Are you getting it?
I'm getting it, that the first one was made, that was killed at sunrise, and then the second one was in the middle of the day, basically, of the light season.
Yes. Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, both of them were, there's 3 times when it talks about between the evenings, and both lambs could be prepared between the evenings, but we know they did one in the morning and one in the afternoon, right? But those 2 times are still between the mixtures. So that's
Right.
good. That's good, Renee. That's good.
Any more comments?
Yeah, I'm glad I don't do lamb anymore. Yahusha's my lamb. He's the only lamb I need. Although we
There you
do
go.
celebrate Passover, we just don't do it with the lamb.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we don't either. Okay. Exodus 30, verse 8. And when Aaron lights the lamps between the evenings, now this is the literal time between the light and the dark mixtures, he shall burn incense on it, a continual incense before Yahuwah throughout your generations. So Aaron was to be prepared for the darkness by lighting the lamps before the darkness even began. There was no specific time indicated for the lamps to be burning as long as it was before the sun had set, where the light and the darkness start to mix. And here's a question. Are we also advised to be prepared before the darkness arrives, like oil in our lamps? I think so. I think there's some patterns there for us.
Charlene, maybe I should rephrase that. The question: Are we also advised to be prepared between the two evenings, between the Arbayim? In the light, because we're not supposed to be doing things, getting our knowledge at night. We're supposed to be prepared in the light. Look to the light always.
Yeah, amen. We need to be ready in and out of season, right?
Yes.
I think at night we're supposed to be sleeping because the day is for work and the night is for rest.
Yeah.
Okay, Leviticus 23:5. We're switching gears here. We're back to Passover. In the first month, on the 14th day of the month, and there's our phrase, between the evenings, is the Passover to Yahuwah. Now, some desire to teach that Yahusha exchanged the law for an easier set. Yahusha claimed that he came to fulfill the Torah, not to change it. He says in Matthew 5:17, "Do not think that I am come to destroy the Torah or the prophets. I did not come to destroy, but to complete." And did Yahusha live up to that claim? Absolutely. He voluntarily delivered up his life, ben ha-Arbayim, between the evenings. We all know that, right?
So did he fulfill the Torah?
Did he? This is yes, and this is no.
I can't see anybody on the screen, so I rely on hearing.
Okay, well, they've got their mics turned on.
Okay.
Okay, Terry, you're going to read slide 29 for us. Terry, got your mic on? Rebecca, can you turn on your mic for Terry?
Numbers
There we go.
9 and 2. Now let the children of Israel perform the Passover at its appointed time. 9:3. On the 14th day of
Thank you,
the
honey.
month, between the evenings, literally between the light and the darkness mixtures, perform it at its appointed time. According to all that its laws and right rulings, you perform it. So they performed the Passover on the 14th day of the first month between the evenings, literal, between the light and darkness mixtures, in the wilderness of Sinai, according to all that Yahuwah commanded Moshe. So the children of Israel did. On the 14th day of the second month, between the evenings, literal, between the light and the darkness mixtures, they perform it. With unleavened bread and bitter herbs, they eat it. It will be very good to read verse 12 at this point too. Clearly, the remaining statutes pertaining to the Passover were not to be forgotten. They also must be fulfilled according to the scripture specifications.
Okay, Terry, do you happen to have your Bible there to read Numbers 9:12?
Sure.
Okay, and while she's getting that, do you notice that there's 3 times that between the evenings is in this few passages here? It's mentioned 3 times.
Numbers 9, 12.
That's really interesting. Yeah, verse 12.
They shall leave none of it until the morning, nor break any bone of it. According to all the ordinances of the Pesach, they shall keep it.
Excellent.
Is it becoming a little bit clearer why that it shouldn't, the remains shouldn't be left until morning? What would cause the morning to be an important point?
It's a new day.
What day?
The next day.
What day?
Unleavened
What
bread.
festival?
Oh, unleavened bread.
Yes.
Yes.
Yay!
And also, if I might just add here, these descriptions of the Passover lamb that we find in Exodus and Numbers are the type for our antitype, the Messiah. He has to follow all of the type and fulfill the type in the Passover lamb that we find in Exodus and Numbers, etc. He is the fulfillment. So that means, as we're going to find out when we ever get to the Passion events, which is quite a ways down the line, that when Yeshua was taken down off the cross and made ready for burial, Joseph and Nicodemus, according to these types that you find in Exodus 12, had all night to wash his body and clean it according to the custom of the Jews, and to give him tender loving care in his burial, in the wrapping of all the linen and the spices, so that he could be carefully laid and placed in the tomb. But the one condition was that they had to be done before the morning. He had to be in the grave and out of sight before the morning, just like the lamb had to be burned and out of sight before the morning. So everything had to be done on the Passover cycle of 24 hours. We'll go into that in a lot of detail when we actually do that study.
And
Okay, I guess I'll
Sorry. I'd also like to point out that the body of Yahusha was not even asked for until the evening had already arrived. And now that we have learned what the evening or a rev means, that means that the two witnesses in the scriptures tell us that the body of Yahusha was not even asked for until after the sun had set. So how is it possible for us to be taught that he was buried before sunrise or before sunset, when his body was not even asked for until after the sun had already set?
I have a question.
Yes.
That brings a question up, Tim. I was always taught that Jewish custom was that the body had to be off of the cross or tree or whatever before dark.
Get ready to enter it. That's right, because tomorrow was unleavened bread, the high Sabbath.
But the context there was not of the Passover. It was not of the Passover lamb. The context was simply be people being hung or nailed on the
yes.
cross.
And the yes, and it also says that they were not to leave the bodies on the crosses over the night. I don't think there's a distinction that it had to be off the cross before evening or night, but not to remain over the night.
Right.
But also Yahusha had to follow those commands as well, because those are in Torah. So his body was taken down. Yes, it was. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He was not on the cross over the night. He was being in the burial process through the night season. And we learn in Luke 23:54 and 55, I believe it is, that it was still the preparation when they buried him. It was still the preparation night, and the Shabbat epiphosko, which means grew light. So just they had spent the full night burying him, processing him, getting him ready to for burial. They put him in the tomb, and when they had done that, the Sabbath began to grow light. We're going to go into that.
Okay, Tim.
And that Sabbath that began to grow light, that was unleavened bread, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
What day of the week was that? What cycle of the week?
It was on the fifth day.
Yes. Yes. The fifth regular week. Yes. Excellent.
I think
Tim,
Danon had a
Tim,
comment.
what's the name of the study that you have that shows the preparation day in the Gospels? What's that particular study? That's such a wonderful study for the subject.
There's
It talks about the Pacific preparation.
I have 3 of them, and I think Charlene has a couple also. The ones I have are called the crucifixion according to John, and that the one that goes with that is called Roman Reckoning. They have to be read together to understand it clearly.
Right.
The other one is Matthew 28, End of the Sabbath, and that goes through the Gospels and with the crucifixion in mind, and it's very, very, very clear there that the crucifixion occurred on a 4th cycle. I also have another PowerPoint that is called a 6th cycle crucifixion, and that goes through the scripture step by step and shows how it is absolutely impossible to have a Friday crucifixion.
Right. Thank you, Tim. And just make sure that everybody's got copies of these so they can go to the computer and review these presentations. There's so many of them. Thank you.
They're all available to whoever asks. We'd be happy to send them out. Okay, Charlene, are we going to continue with this slide?
Yes, let's do the very last entry for this phrase between the evenings. That's Ben Ha Arbayim. You find it in Numbers 28:4. This is number 10. The one lamb you prepare in the morning, and the other lamb you prepare between the evenings. We've heard this many, many times already, this particular phrase for Passover. Literally, it means between the light and the dark mixtures. So once again, there is no problem with understanding this phrase between the evenings. As the original Hebrew definitions indicate, it's always between the light and dark mixtures. So that means with this knowledge under our hat, is there a possibility of other problems using the phrase between the evenings? And what could possibly cause any problem from relying on this phrase that is written in our scriptures? Because the Jews have another understanding of this phrase. And, you know, I was taught the Jews haven't got a thing wrong. They know it all. Just listen to them. The real questions will be, we have a couple of questions here. The real questions will be, did the scriptures define this particular time, this between the evenings, as, now listen, is it when the sun was going down, as in the time frame from afternoon until sunset? It might be a tricky question. Does somebody want to answer it? It's a tricky question.
Can you repeat the question?
Okay. First of all, we decided that the scriptures are telling us that between the evenings is between the dawn twilight and the dusk twilight, Boker and Erev. Do the scriptures, here's the question, do the scriptures define between the evenings for when the sun is going down starting at noon to sunset instead of Boker to sunset? Do the scriptures do that?
No, actually, the understanding of it being after sunset or after sunrise and before sunset makes all of the scriptures actually fall into place and make sense where that's used.
Yes. So that's what we're going to be looking at now, is this little monkey trail. So the mixing of light, we're going to start back at the first 3 cycles of creation. These are some questions that we want you to think about. Tim and I want you to get used to thinking outside the box, asking questions, and finding answers. And these are not hard questions. Now, this is on the first 3 days of creation. Here's the question. Was the sun going down? A positive determining factor that's documented in Genesis 1, and is it a foundational platform for determining time in the first 3 cycles of creation? Think about that. Question number 3.
I'd like some answers on that if we could, Charlene. I'd like some people to take
Okay.
and get some comments.
No, because the sun wasn't even created until day 4.
There you go.
The first 3 cycles, it was
I think, yeah, in my opinion, it was already created. It just was assigned on day 4. I think that verse 1 was a complete statement. The heavens and earth were completed, and but the assignment for the moon and sun hadn't been given yet until day 4.
I'm with you on that, Mario. I believe that the 2 great lights were commissioned on day 4, commissioned with light, but I believe that they were created completely on day 1. I agree.
That word for made there is asar, or assignment, or whatever.
Yeah.
Not bara, or yeah.
Yeah, bara is not found there. It's not created, is not found in that day.
So we have 3 creations and 4 days of restoration.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, here is question number 3. How is it that there was an Erev, or a mixture of light and darkness, on the first 3 cycles of creation when there's no sun in the sky that is commissioned with light? How did that happen? And question number 4.
I'm waiting for an answer.
Yeah,
I want a thought on that question, Charlene. Is there anybody?
Okay, we're not going. Gary Hoffman, how about you, Gary? Put your mic on.
Mic is on.
Good.
I'm
How do you
still
explain
pondering.
this?
Okay, everybody's thinking about it. We will move to the next question because we are going to cover this.
I have it.
I'm just wanting to understand the question. How is it that there was a mixing of light and dark in the first 3 cycles of creation?
When there's no sun in the sky.
Okay, the days 1, 2, and 3, it says, and there was evening. But yet we don't have, or that the sun had not yet been commissioned with light until day 4. So how could there be a mixing of light and darkness if there was no orb of the sun with light?
Yeah, well, it's not that there had to be an orb of the sun of light. They just didn't have their assignment.
That's right. That's why I said with light. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how could this light and darkness mixture be?
Could it not be not physical light and darkness, but a spiritual light and darkness?
That's a good answer, because that's a very good answer, actually.
Everything points to that, yeah.
But I also believe Yahusha, he was the creator. He was there at creation. He is light, period. When he arrived on the location for creation, there was light, period. And I believe that it was his light as he moved away from the creation scene. When he moved away, that waning of light is the mixing of light and darkness that caused the Erev mixture on those first 3 days. Any comments?
I have one.
Yeah, Rebecca?
In the book of Revelation, it talks about when the New Jerusalem comes down. They see the New Jerusalem. There was no temple in there, and there was no need of the sun or the moon to shine in it, for Yahushua was the light and the light of it. So there's an example of that.
And I that's a very good example. And I would like to point out it. This is my thought. I do not believe that it says the moon and the sun were gone. They were by no need of them. It doesn't mean they were removed. I believe that they were still there with light, or they will still be there with light. but Yahusha's light will be so much brighter that it will absolutely dwarf them. Is there any more comments on that, please?
Yes, Tim, I would like to say, because this came up a little bit earlier and I didn't think about it, until we've done this study tonight. Those twilight periods are so important, because if Yahuwah had not put those twilights in there, if it would have just been automatically light and automatically dark, you would not know how to tell when the day begins without looking at a sun. And I think he deliberately put those twilights in there because he wants us to pay attention to the light. He said very clearly, I don't want you looking at the sun and the moon and the stars and the planets, because the planets reflect light as well, and all the heavenly hosts. He said, because you're going to end up worshiping them like the pagans do. That's what's going to happen. And he deliberately set those twilights in there as a safety so that we would not get trapped like the pagans do. It is such a wonderful plan. So as he removes himself from the creation scene, as Tim has said, there's that light and dark mixture until, the earth is enveloped in night. And when he comes back, we have that mixture coming in again to start the new day. It's really a wonderful thought when you think about it.
Yeah, and it is pretty much safety when you don't look up at the sun.
Yeah.
You're going to get need some new eyes if you continue to do that for very long.
It's pretty interesting when you look closely that Yahuwah built in a protection for us if we listen to his words, so that we wouldn't follow the pagans. It's just a built-in protection against worshiping the sun. When he said, you are children of the light and not of darkness, he didn't say you are children of the sun and not of darkness. He said you are of light. He wants us to look to the light always.
Yeah, when we follow the pagans, we end up paying again, don't we?
Yeah. Okay, let's get on to question 4.
My friend, is it the orb of the sun which determines an evening mixture, or is it the residual light that comes from the sun? Yes, Yahusha provided the light for the first 3 cycles of creation, and possibly for some on the 4th too, because when he came to light the lights in the sky on the 4th day, it had to be his light that started the boker of day 4, because the sun wasn't lit yet. So the sun gave its very first twilight at the evening of the 4th day, and that is another covenant of the midst of the week.
I was just going to bring that up, Darlene. If you could expand on that, the covenant of middle of the week.
The midst of the week.
We believe that right in the midst of the week, when you take the week from day 1 to day 7, and you get the exact midst of the week, it's going to be the evening of the 4th cycle. That is the exact middle of the week. That links into Daniel 9:27 that says that the Messiah will be cut off at the midst of the week, and all the sacrifices and oblations will cease, the offerings. So Yahushua was crucified, he died, I believe it was around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the 9th hour. But Daniel said that by the middle of the week, the midst of the week, all the sacrifices and oblations will cease. And we have a quote on the very last slide by Josephus that tells us that the sacrifices were all done by about 5 o'clock in the afternoon on Passover day. And 6 o'clock, or about 6:20, is about the time that the evening twilight will be seen in Jerusalem on Passover day. So the prophecy was fulfilled. We're seeing the sun in the sky determines the midst of the week, the very first time in creation week. It is the covenant for the midst of the week that points to your Messiah, that was also fulfilling a prophecy in Daniel 9. And we have a study.
Fulfilled to the very nanosecond.
Yeah.
That's right. To the moment.
I have something I want to share. Can you hear me?
Yes?
Okay, I was just going to share that, that the covenant week when Yahweh made the sun, the moon, and the stars, that he made that sun and the moon and the stars for 5 different reasons. And one of them was signs. And I have to ask that question, what was the thing that the sun set? It showed a sign of marking the midst of the week from the foundations of the world when the Messiah was going to be crucified. The Father engraved it in the covenant week of creation. And that sign it marked the first twilight. I love it. I love the Wednesday crucifixion, man. It's bulletproof. And there's just so much more light coming. You just can't. I just get so excited about this subject.
Thank you, Danon. It really is goosebumpy. When you start seeing this all come together, it gives you goosebumps. Okay, slide 32, Tim. So some might say that this is splitting hairs, but the fact is there was no sunlight on the first 3 cycles of creation, and there was still light to cause a light and dark mixture, and that was named Erev. So now tell me, how is it that today the orb of the sun is identified as being the determining factor for identifying when a Erev evening or this light and darkness mixture can exist? How does the sun get this identification?
Now, I'm hoping that people understand that the reason I'm asking about the orb of the sun is because we are told by the Talmud that the first evening starts when the sun goes down in the sky. So this is what this question is referencing right now. How did we go from the light to identifying the sun? Where did this come from?
Well, is the answer that because the mixture belongs to the day season, and they just pretty much reverse everything that's true. So I don't know.
Yes. It's the word I like to reference is convolute. Things get twisted, and that's exactly what the adversary did in the Garden of Eden. He convoluted the truth to Eve, and he can't do anything but convolute. That's what's happening with the Ben Arbayim. It has been convoluted or twisted or manipulated so that we understand that it's determined by the sun going down. But instead, when you go back to the Hebrew definitions, it's the light between the light and darkness mixtures. Okay, number 7. Where is the light and darkness mixture during a hot afternoon when the sun is directly overhead and at about 45 degrees Celsius? It seems clear that there is an agenda for declaring an evening in the afternoon. Is the sun going down from the noon mark on?
Yes.
Yep. Yes, from our minuscule vantage point, the sun definitely appears to go down. However, technically, it is not going down 1 iota, but is continuing forward in its commission to deliver heat and light to other places on the earth. The sun does not actually go down. What does occur is that with excessive distance, the direct sunlight is prevented from traveling forever. Did not Yahuwah declare in Genesis 1:4 that he divided the light from the darkness? How did Yahuwah divide that light from the darkness? Is it possible that he, at that time, put a limitation of sorts on light itself? Why does the light from a flashlight not shine forever through eternity? Is it possible that there is an unknown limitation on the light? So in reality, today follows the exact same pattern as the first few cycles of creation. The light, having been gradually removed, forms the light and darkness evening mixture. The darkness overtakes the light that is moving on. There is really no direct influence from the sun orb itself. A direct effect from the sun would be an eclipse of the sun where the direct light is blocked from covering the earth. Yahuwah did not give us a blank command instructing us not to worship the sun. Yahuwah also supplied the vital guidelines to automatically protect us from that abomination. We are not to look to the orb of the sun, but are constantly reminded to look to the light. Charlene?
But yet we are taught to accept from the Jewish concepts without any questions, because the Pharisee-derived Talmud said that immediately after the point of high noon, the sun has begun to go down, so therefore that part of the day is called the first evening. That's what they say. Right there, the sun has begun to go down. That's your Talmudic Pharisee tradition. What does Luke 7:13 say? Nullifying the word of Elohim through your tradition, which you have handed down, and many such like you do. Those are from the words of Yahusha. They took the scriptures and said something else.
Yeah. When else are we told the sun is going down? The first evening? Is there a darkness to provide a mixture here? When there's direct sun, when the sun is in the sky, how can there be darkness come in to mix? How many times have you heard of the two evenings, with the first one starting at noon as the sun begins to go down in the sky? Did you ever question the origin of this concept? I think it's very important that we start to question these things. And when we get our answer, we scrutinize it very, very carefully and find out where that origin is. Who created these thoughts that go directly against the Hebrew definitions? That's very, very important for us. Charlene?
Okay, so now we've come to a crossroads and we have a choice. Are we going to accept the information that we have been taught, that the sun going down in the afternoon allows for a light and dark mixture before sunset, when that doesn't even make sense? Or second, can darkness really invade the sky while the sun is still there? And third, is it really true that the sun actually and physically goes down? Who wants us to believe these kinds of things? So yes, there is choices. We are choosing to abide by the Hebrew words, their original meanings that the authors intended them to mean. Where the only place a light and darkness mixture can occur following the middle of the cycle is after the sun has traveled on its endless journey and is out of our sight. So let's look at another graphic and make sure we're all on the same page.
Okay, does this make any sense to you? Here's the dawn, here's the morning twilight, here's the sunset. The sun has disappeared after sunset, causing a rev twilight light and mixture, or light and darkness mixture to occur right here. There's the noon mark. A brilliant yellow orb called the sun is high in the sky, and the blackness of night overtakes mixture, the light, causing a darkened twilight condition before the sun sets. Is there anybody that would like to put me in one of those institutes for stating that? That doesn't make any sense to me. When the sun is in the sky, I have never in my life seen darkness overtake the sun.
Except for it did happen at the cross at noon.
Yes. That was a very different situation. And my comment, is there darkness overtaking the light in the afternoon on every Friday? What
I don't think so.
No.
I don't think so. Hey, just a quick heads up, a quick reminder. We have 15 minutes left of the 2-hour portion, and then another 30 minutes for people that want to hang on later and maybe chat some more and ask some more questions, especially for our back east people. I don't know what time it is back there right now. What is it? Like, I don't know, 11 or something? Or anyway.
Okay, let's go through this. Let's get going.
Okay.
What advantage does religion assume by claiming an evening in the afternoon? A misunderstanding of this phrase, between the evenings, can and will cause huge problems with the passion events of Yahushua's burial. What if Christianity was bent on showing a Friday before evening burial of Jesus, so they could have an inclusive 3 days, allowing Jesus to be resurrected on Sunday morning? When Matthew 27:57 claims Joseph requested the body of Jesus when the evening had arrived, it now becomes ultra easy to say Jesus was buried before sunset. There was enough time to casually wrap him. Oh yes, that might mean Jesus was buried before the sunset Sabbath too. What about Mark 15:42 and 43? And when evening had come, and we all know what that word evening means now. That is the light and darkness mixture. And now notice the small letters beneath. I'll start over again. And when evening had come, we can say after sunset, because it was the preparation day, that is the day before the Sabbath. And then Mark 15:43, Joseph of Ramathaim, a prominent council member who was himself waiting for the reign of Elohim, came, boldly went into Pilate and asked for the body of Yahushua. Does everybody see here that the sunset had already passed, because it says it's evening, the twilight and darkness mixture. The sunset had already passed. Mark calls it the preparation day. The sunset did not change the day on this particular event. And only after the sun had set did Joseph of Ramathaim come and ask for the body of Yahushua. Does everybody see that? Okay.
Yes, we've got some nods.
Yeah, okay, that's what I need. What evening was it when, after it had occurred, that Joseph of Arimathea asked for the body of Yahushua? Was it the afternoon evening when the darkness was mixing with the light, causing a twilight effect before sunset? Please think carefully about this for a minute. Was it the evening that has no Hebrew definition background? Was it the type of traditional evening that has no Hebrew definition background nor scriptural foundation? Or conversely, was it the Areb evening mixture that has a light and darkness quotient that by Hebrew definition occurs only before sunrise and after sunset? If one traditional evening is from noon till 6 p.m., and the second evening is from 6 p.m. until darkness, the 3 stars, how does one determine if Yahushua died as per Passover lamb type instructions, Ben Ha-Arbayim? There's your noon mark. There's your first evening, your light and your darkness mixture. There's the sunset, and that brings the second evening. Now, you'll notice that red mark. This red mark is between the evenings. There's one evening. There's a second evening. This is between the evening. How do we determine how long that is? Please be sure you are familiar with the time frame concept of the sunset between the evenings. Did Yahushua die here, fulfilling the type pattern of the Passover lamb, Ben Ha-Arbayim, between the evenings? Did he die at sunset? Luke 23:44. Darkness came over the land until the 9th hour. Verse 46. Father, into your hands I command my spirit. And having said this, he breathed his last. This is when he died. This is not between the evenings. The death and burial all before the Sabbath at sunset? It depends on your sources. All one has to do is ignore the original meanings. It's easy. No need to study. Please do not study very deeply, because all this Sunday morning resurrection dogma will collapse very quickly if one pays attention to what is actually written. Are you ready for another vital point? Were the Israelites commanded to slay the Pesach lamb? No, sorry. Where were the Israelites commanded to slay the Pesach lamb? Deuteronomy 16:2. And you slaughter the Pesach to Yahuwah, your Elohim, from the flock and the herd, in the place where Yahuwah chooses to put his name. At what location did Yahuwah declare his name would abide? Where did Yahuwah claim his name would dwell? 1 Kings 8:18-21, 2 Samuel 7:5-7, and 12-14. And 1 Chronicles 17:4-14, and chapter 28, verse 6. Solomon built the tabernacle for the name of Yahuwah to dwell there. What does this mean for the Israelites who were to slay the Pesach lamb? It means massive amounts of sacrificial lambs were to be slain in the tabernacle on the day of Pesach. What time frame did Yahuwah give them to accomplish this laborious effort? And you shall keep it up until the 14th day of the same month. Then all the assembly of the congregation of Yisrael shall kill it between the evenings. I was taught from a child that the Passover lambs were to be slain at the 3 p.m. or 9th hour from dawn mark of the afternoon until sunset. There's your dawn, there's your twilight, your sunrise, there's your light season, the 9th hour, your sunset, the second twilight, and the darkness. I hope I emphasized that 9th hour enough. Did Yisrael really only have 3 hours to sacrifice tens of thousands or more Pesach lambs, all within the house where Yahuwah's name resides? There's the morning twilight on your left. There's your evening twilight on your right. The Hebrew definitions of the original recorded words gives us a whole different aspect. Between the evenings tells me that they had from sunrise until sunset to sacrifice their lambs. 12 full hours, not 3. It seems to me that the temple would be very busy slaying lambs in the whole 12 hours of between the evenings. I cannot imagine if it were only 3 hours to slay all those lambs within the temple. Let's see what Josephus has to say as an eyewitness. So these high priests, upon coming up to their feast, which is called the Passover, when they slay their sacrifices from the 9th hour to the 11th, or 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. Roman time, but so that not a company less than 10 belong to every sacrifice. And many of us are 20 in a company. Found this number of sacrifices was 256,500, which upon the allowance of no more than 10 that feast together amounts to 2,700,200 persons that were pure and holy. Okay, let's take a very, very close look at this number. 256,500 lambs. Were Yahuwah's divine provisions set aside here? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, that's... Charlene, you did some more calculations there. I forget what it was. I had it down to about if they were going to slay 256,500 lambs from 3 p.m. till 5 p.m., they were going to have to slay a lamb about every 2.5 or 3 seconds, and that would be they all had to be in the temple. Can you imagine that happening? Go ahead, Charlie.
Within the 3-hour period, it's absolutely impossible. When I worked it out, it was basically 330 lambs per hour. I didn't work it out to a minute or a second, but through the 12-hour period of the light season of Passover Day, they were basically slaying over 300 lambs per hour. Of course, all of the priests were on duty slaying lambs, but it would have been impossible to slay everybody's Passover lamb within the 3-hour period. It's not possible.
Because they were required by statute that those lambs had to be slain in the temple. So now it makes a whole lot of sense when we go back to Exodus 12:6, and the original command was to slay your lamb between the evenings, that is between the Erev mixtures. It just makes so much more sense. It brings so much clarity to the scriptures. Okay, let's open this up for whoever has got discussion. Whoever wants to ask questions, fly at her.
Well, first of all, let me say thank you guys for doing such an excellent job. Tim, awesome. Charlene, thank you. I don't know about anybody else, but I think I see more clearly, just a little bit more clearly.
Hallelujah, you are not alone. This is excellent. Everything just makes sense now.
Yeah.
Yeah, very great.
So, and it's, I see more of it, I think, than I saw before. I thought I was seeing before, but I think I see more. And that, everything, even, everything, truly. He says, I am the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the last, or the Aleph and the Tav. He meant he's all of it. Everything points to him. Wow. I don't know what else to say. Any questions, anybody?
I have a comment or a question.
Okay.
If we say that the evening Arab begins with noon, when the sun begins going down, supposedly, then wouldn't we need to be consistent and say that the morning Arab lasted from the first rays of light until noon? And if that's the case, we would be having Arab all day.
Interesting. Very good point.
Yeah.
Praise yeah. Thank you.
Yes, that's good. Those are really good questions, and when you start to think about it, you will have lots of questions as well, so that when someone comes at you and wants to accuse you or rebuttal you or say, no, you've got it wrong, you will have some questions to turn back to them. These are simple questions. This is a way of teaching. It's the way Yahusha taught. He asked simple questions that he knew everybody knew the answers for. And if you read your Gospels through 10 times in a row, you'll find it, just like I did. The scribes and the Pharisees would not answer his questions because they knew that he had them in a corner. So they would turn around and walk away. And that's an art, it's a science, it's a technique of learning how to teach by asking just very simple questions. So I appreciate that last question a lot.
Yeah, and we are in a different season than we've ever been in before. I think people across the board, believers, non-believers, everyone can agree that they've been deceived about pretty much everything. Regarding the governments, regarding religion, regarding faith, all those types of things. They're starting to see that, hey, maybe we've missed something along the way. The deception is being open. I think Yah is doing that before our very eyes. So Charlene and Tim, I want to thank you for spending all the time and years that you guys have have done it so that now in the season, people are able to grab a hold of it much quicker, I think, than it used to be.
If anybody has any questions, we can discuss them. Like, I know we're pretty well out of time, but we can discuss them next time we get together. If you want this PowerPoint and to go over it yourself and so you understand it better, you're going to have this, Mario, and or I have it, whatever. It's free to anyone who wants it.